The following podcast discusses topics about mental health struggles and illnesses, including suicide, depression, anxiety, ADHD, and trauma. There are also brief mentions of 9/11, divorce, use of prescription drugs, and some strong language. If at any point the conversation is too much or you feel like you need to talk to someone, know that help is available. You can call the GBHWC 24-hour crisis hotline at 671-647-8833 or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255.
Welcome to Everything's Cherry, a podcast for casual conversations about all things mental health related.
On this podcast, we share personal stories, advice from professionals, and other musings on how everything and anything can affect our mental health.
I'm CJ, one of the co-hosts.
And I'm Ruzelle, the other co-host. And today we are joined by the wonderful, mildly famous Chloe Babauta.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for weeks since you asked me a while ago.
We are honored to have you. Chloe, did you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I was just talking right before this to you two about this, but I wear a lot of hats and I'm not always sure how to introduce myself, but in this context, I'm happy to be here as in my bedroom, just chill Chloe, your ate Chloe. So, follow me on Instagram. But I'm a former journalist from Guam. I worked at PDN, and after that, I moved back to California I guess I'll backtrack a little bit just to give everybody context about who I am generally, but I grew up on Guam, moved to the States to go to college, and then moved back to Guam to work as a reporter for a bit, which is a really beautiful experience. And then moved back to California where my family lives. So I can be with my family. And when I have kids someday, my kids will be with their grandparents. So that's the plan.
Awesome.
So I guess that was a very long-winded introduction.
No, it was perfect. And, thank you so much for joining us. So today we are here to just talk about mental health. And we're really excited, like Ruzelle said earlier, excited and honored to have you here. So let's start with a really, really easy question. Can you tell us about your mental health journey?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this on my way home, what I would talk to you two about. And I guess I feel like my mental health journey has been pretty long and weird. I think anybody who's dealt with mental health issues knows that just even getting one diagnosis can be pretty rough. Working with different therapists and talking to or just telling your whole life story and examining the parts of yourself you don't always want to look at and kind of pretend aren't there. I'm gonna put out one disclaimer. I'm a crier. So I might just start
we're both criers. It's good, Chloe. You're good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I used to be embarrassed about that, but I think I've embraced at this point. I'm just a crier. So yeah. I think that it also conveys my sincerity. So I've just learned to embrace it, and here I am welling up a little. But I guess wait, how far detailed is this question, or should this answer be?
As far as you want to go.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, I don't think I knew it at the time, but I have a bunch of my old I'll just bring one down for you actually.
Oh my gosh, Chloe, you're a woman after my own heart.
So this is my 8th grade diary, and my mom saved all of my diaries, and all of my notebooks and stuff, because she's a little obsessed with me. And I'm sure she's gonna be watching this, so hi, Mom. And this is my 8th grade diary, and I sometimes just read through all my diaries and think about what little Chloe was going through. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of painful to go through some of them because she was going through some rough stuff. it's kind of funny just like reading back and like what we were going through back on Guam, like in the 90s and like the 2000s, like typhoons, being out of school, and like 9/11, just like, you know, different things if like that affected us even on Guam. But so in all these diaries, I have like a bunch of them up here too, just because like I like to reference them, and like when I try to think back on like when did I first feel this emotional trigger, it really helps me to have this, like, I'm a little historian, and like I really document, like I really thank my past self for documenting like all my feelings. Like I think the reason why I'm a person who can have this conversation with you openly is because like I've gotten to get very intimate with my feelings through these diaries. So it isn't, I guess like that's why it's easier for me to talk about this, because like I kind of know my feelings very well. But yeah, so I think I was experiencing depression when I was even a child because of like different things I went through. Like my parents got divorced, and what else? That sounds like a little like funny, but I'm just like saying in this context. But yeah, so feeling a lot of feelings from that, and then also kind of like, you know, the average things that people go like that young people go through, like falling in love and like he doesn't like me back, or yeah. And sometimes I just kind of thought I was like an emo kid, like who liked My Chemical Romance and like Green Day and stuff. But then, like, right? I know you know what I'm talking about.
Big fan.
But yeah, I think those, like, reading all the lyrics I wrote, I was like, this is kind of like show some underlying deep feelings. Like I wrote some Green Day stuff. Like here's one. Okay, never mind. This is not safe for work.
Okay.
But shoot, where was I going with this? Oh, that's another thing about me. I can kind of go on a ramble.
That is okay.
But yeah, I'm really taking a long time to get to the point. But I think I was dealing with a lot of depression throughout a lot of my life, and I didn't really tackle any of that until I was older because, like, well, sometimes I wish that I had gone to therapy when I was younger, but I think somebody told me this, like, I can't remember who or when, but, like, sometimes you aren't equipped, like, the younger version of yourself isn't equipped to deal with the things that they're going through at the time. So the best you can do is be in survival mode. And then when you get older and you can understand like the world and like that what you went through wasn't necessarily because of you, it was just kind of like how things were, and like see it from a more objective lens. I think that's when I wouldn't have been able to do the healing when I was younger. So I guess I just accept like that it's okay that I didn't go to therapy when I was younger, and I was just always going to feel all those feelings and go through all that. And rough. I feel like the depression and like anxiety and all the things that I experienced when I was younger actually made me into who I am now. So fuck. Yeah, so I think, you know, mental health has been a struggle for a lot of my life, but like I think it made me into who I am, and like to be able to talk about this stuff with people, including you too. So yeah, I went to therapy when oh man, maybe we'll just take a break from me talking so I don't just like freaking cry the entire time. So yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
full disclosure, you are welcome to just continue to cry the entire time. We're here for you. If we need to cut some of it out and you request for us to cut some of it out, that's cool. But I guess that kind of, like, you know, the thing is, like, millennials kind of get a lot of flack, right? Because of the way that they have, taken their experiences and like doing things to kind of like make things better, like using those experiences to affect change. And right. And our point of view is just so different from like the generations before us. Right. And because of that, we get like a lot of the flack online, like, oh, millennials are doing this again. Oh, millennials are doing that again.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, a lot of like growing up in the millennium, like in the early 2000s, like the times that we grew up, it was a weird time. Like, a lot of stuff was happening. The war was happening. 9/11 was happening. Everybody was like kind of stressed all the time. But also like social media just had this huge boom, right? And so like there are all these kids who are feeling a lot of feelings, had no idea what to do with it because like the generations before them didn't really do anything about it, right? They didn't really
and
talk
didn't like know
about
how to talk about it because of like the people they were raised by, right?
Right. Yeah. So like I totally understand what you're saying, where it's like when we were growing up it was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like we weren't equipped. The people older than us weren't equipped to deal with it. And so like we had to figure it out as we got older, which is why like I feel like a lot of people our age, like it's such a common thing that like they have had to deal with this kind of things. And it's kind of a double thing too, because like now people are becoming more aware because like the information is out there more, but it's it was such a difficult thing to navigate then, and it's like we're all feeling the kind of after effects of it now, right?
So like I'm sure like the things that I'm talking about are very relatable to many.
100%. So relatable.
Which is a huge reason why we even have this podcast to begin with, right?
Yeah. It just feels nice just to talk about like, oh, that weird shit I went through. Like we all kind of went through it, and like we're all kind of like, whoa, what's going on?
So I mean that kind of brings me to like kind of a follow-up to what you were saying, and like if you're open to talking about this next, like how you eventually did determine those next steps for you and trying to figure out how to navigate those feelings.
I'm just like reaching for some tissue so I can.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. How did I like get to that point, like where I felt like I needed to go, or where I like knew I needed to go to therapy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check out my video, I have done like a topic about this on my YouTube channel, Love Screwed. So how I knew I started. Well, okay, I'm not going to tell the same exact story I told on that because like I actually started going to therapy before that time. So it was when I was in college. I'm trying to remember the first time and like why I wanted to go. So like I went to UC Santa Barbara, and like I was really lucky that they offered free counseling for students. So you can get like one session a week with a therapist for like 1 quarter, but then like if after that quarter of school's over, then you have to start all over with a new person. So it's not great. But who am I to scoff at like free therapy? So so I had gone through a lot of stuff like leading up to that point when I started going to therapy. I was in this really intense relationship when I graduated from high school. I was dating this guy who like enlisted in the military. So like we're doing long distance while I was in college. Toxic relationship, but that's kind of like common at 18, unfortunately. And our breakup was really rough. Lots of like him yelling at me over like Skype and stuff like that, and like cussing at me, and like us having just like rough fights and stuff, and like experiencing a lot of jealousy, and like how it feels to be 18. But yeah, after that I was moving into an apartment like for the first time, like when I was in college. I was like 19, and it was really rough. It was difficult because like we had to find an apartment when we weren't even like in the area at all. So all of that stress of like moving and like growing up and like having my own place as like an adult, and like having to get a job and go to school, and like dealing with that breakup, and like missing my parents and family because like they lived far away. all of that was like actually wreaking havoc on my body. So like this was like you know what, I would say I'm not even gonna say this is the first time I experienced like physical like anxiety, because I realized as an adult that like I used to get like stomach aches and like vomit from like anxiety. So I just didn't know that's what was happening when I was a kid. I used to like get so excited for Christmas or like different things that were going on. I would just get so anxious that I would actually have a fever and like throw up and stuff. So baby me, so really feeling those feelings.
Yeah, I get that 100%. I totally get the same way with like the stomach aches and just feeling that. And I guess I've never really thought about it until now that, yeah, that is like a response, your body's response to these different things.
And it's so weird because you wouldn't like think that like, oh, I'm anxious and like those are my emotions and now I'm gonna throw up. Like it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but I feel like that's a good indicator too of like how mental health is really tied to your overall physical health. Like even if people don't always see it that way, like some people think that you should only go to like a doctor if you are having like a physical symptom of something, or like if you physically get hurt, but like your mental health really affects your whole body and like your overall health. And like I didn't really learn that until right at this point. I was getting these crazy hives, like this big, literally, like all over my body, and it was really scary because that had never happened before. And like I went to multiple doctors, nobody like really knew what it was. They're like, oh, just don't wear tight clothes or just like reduce like the stressors in your life. And I'm like, how do I do that? Like I'll just like not have any emotions or like school or need money. It's just like, it's kind of funny with mental health because like you're kind of fucked in some ways. Like like doctors can't even really give you an answer. It's kind of like you have to kind of like figure out yourself.
Yeah.
Right. There's not really like here's a swab to test you for this.
Like, right. And it's just like, okay, like how do I get rid of anxiety? Like and when you're like 19, like it's just hard to even understand how all that works, especially because like, you know, to date ourselves, like I'm 28 and like 10 years ago, like these resources and like stuff that people know about mental health now just wasn't a thing.
Right.
Yeah. And going to therapy wasn't really like a thing that people talked about back then either. So that made it really difficult to even go, because it's like, oh my God, I need therapy. Like, you know, what does that mean? It sounds like really intense and like scary, like something you do if you're like going through a divorce or something. But like, yeah, and like here's me, and I like my problems like in comparison to other people wasn't like that crazy, but like it was crazy to me. Or okay, and not to use the word crazy, but yeah, it was wreaking havoc on my body. So then after that I was like, okay, I probably should see somebody, otherwise like I don't know what else I can do. Yeah.
Right. And I think you bring up a really good point about, you know, therapy, and especially back then, just the stigma surrounding it. But even today, I feel like it's stigmatized, and like something I see often, not often, but every now and then on social media is people weaponizing therapy and being like, oh, you know, you should go see a therapist, like as an insult to
like
someone.
It's a dirty thing to do. Like you're terrible, go see a therapist. Like
but it's totally
like,
not the case.
That's actually like some like care. You should be wishing like well on someone, like you should see a therapist, like in a positive way.
Yeah, it's crazy because like even like if just in general, if anybody like is acting like not normal, I guess in quotation marks, right? It's always like, oh, that person must be unwell. Like, oh, that person needs to go see help or get help, you know? And it's just like that.
When anybody should go to therapy.
Yes.
Everyone should go to therapy.
Yes. Big believer in that, Chloe. I tell everybody, I don't care who you are. I don't care how good you think you are. Go see somebody. Just once in a while. There's always something that you can talk about. There's always something that you can like, you know, better about yourself. So like just it's like
and you don't even realize sometimes until you start talking, right?
Right.
Yep. when I started seeing a therapist here, I was like, yeah, I'm just coming in just to do a check-in because I feel like I need maintenance and just to see a therapist like once a month. And then by the end of the session, I was bawling and spent most of the session crying. And she was like, we're gonna see each other once a week. And I was like, you're right. So yeah, you could think that you're in the best place, and and you don't even have to be in a bad place to go to therapy. It's good to have, I think, that outside source to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just having that space where you can cry. Because like there's like almost no opportunities like when you're like working and like on the move all the time, like when you can just like sit down and like have a cry.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's scary, guys. Don't we know it's scary, but it's totally worth it, just for all you people listening.
Yeah,
Totally
honestly,
worth it.
like it's just like talking to somebody who just wants to listen to you and like wants to just like give you space to talk, and like they're not gonna like try to like analyze you and like find what your problem is or whatever. It's just like
Right.
they'll just kind of be like ask you more questions to prompt your own speaking. Like you're like thinking aloud basically with a neutral person to kind of like help you along the way.
Right.
And
That's a big misconception I think about therapy too, is like people think like, oh, what are they going to do to me, or like what's going to come out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, full disclosure, so like, Chloe, I don't know if you know this about me, so like I have a family history of like mood disorders and like behavioral disorders. So like my mom, for example, has like both bipolar disorder and OCD. And so like I was terrified like to see a therapist, because like immediately, when I was younger, I thought like, well, they're gonna definitely find something wrong with me for sure. They're gonna tell me that there's something wrong with me, they're gonna medicate me, and then I'm gonna lose control of myself. I was terrified, and like I feel like that's probably a misconception a lot of people have, right? That's not how it works. They're not going to do that to you, and I think it's partially because of like the media. It's partially because of like the culture among conversation when it comes to mental health.
Or even like how mental health was like dealt with in the past, right?
Yeah.
Like just like having images of like being in like a mental hospital or something, and just like I could understand why that causes fear in people. Like I even experienced that. Like I'm afraid like if I say the wrong thing, then like are they gonna like just like feeling anxious. Yeah.
Right.
So I
think
totally
that's
understand like why people have barriers to that too.
Right. And that's why we want to like, why CJ and I kind of continue to advocate is because like we want to make sure that people know that that's not the case, right? That therapy isn't like that you're not going to get locked away, that people don't generally speaking, they don't do that anymore. We don't just like lock our funny uncles away and put them in a home. It's a way to help you, so that you are able to be with yourself when you're like at home, when you're out with other people.
And Chloe, I know you spoke a little bit about seeking therapy at your college. Can you tell us a little bit, if you're willing, about your journey finding therapy on Guam when you eventually made that move back there?
Yeah. So when I was working at PDN, part of the benefits is that you get like a certain number of like free therapy sessions, like just in case you experience like any kind of like emotional distress from like, sometimes the work can be really rough, like the things that you cover, the things that you see or like have to hear people talk about. So they offer that. But I didn't really need it for work, but they just offer in general, like you can use it for whatever you want. And I was like, I'm definitely going to take advantage of this. Like free therapy. Yeah. Any place I'm offered therapy, like I'll take it. So I knew I wanted to use it eventually, but I wasn't like in a huge rush because that job was really fast paced, and I don't know but there's also like it's not just that, like there's also emotional barriers for me before like starting therapy. Like before I felt like there were a lot of things coming up in me, and like from working and like my relationship and just like triggers like from like my childhood and stuff, like growing up on Guam and like um coming into situations where like things would come up. Um so it got really intense, like to the point where I was just like feeling like crappy all the time and just like uh in a bad mood a lot of the time, and like I felt like I didn't have control over like what was going on in my life. So uh and it was like at the point where I would just like be crying at work. Like I would start crying at work, like in the bathroom, or like have to go outside for a bit to just kind of like cool off. Um and when it's getting in the way of like your day-to-day life like that, it's like, okay, you have to see a doctor. Like you have to see somebody. Like I can't do this anymore. And I think I'm pretty good at like when I really need help, I'll go out and get it. So like I was like, okay, I have to see somebody. So I just give myself little bite-sized pieces, because like it's hard to just go and like, oh hey, like here's all my childhood trauma. It's more like I had to do it in bite-sized pieces. Like, okay, today I'm just gonna find a therapist in Hagatnya in this like directory, and then the next day, okay, I'm just gonna call like one therapist, and like if it works, then it works. Tomorrow I'm gonna call a different one. So like I just worked up the courage like in a lot of small steps. Like, okay, all I have to do today is just go. Because it's really hard. Like there are a lot of like emotional and like mental barriers, like at least for me before actually going to therapy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to. I was gonna say in addition to like those sometimes the emotional and mental barriers, sometimes there's just barriers, and
Yeah.
I get that same feeling like when I have to start looking for a new therapist for whatever reason, I just start to find all the excuses not to, like, oh, it's too hard. There's just not enough
Mhm.
therapists on Guam. Like, create you sometimes you create those barriers, and sometimes there just
Yeah.
is. So I think that's totally valid, and that's some great advice to take it, little by little,
Mhm.
and do what you can.
Yeah, and like find it. I feel like I was trying to take away a lot of the barriers. Like I'll find one that's real close to my work, so like I have to go. You know what I mean? Like uh if it's like, oh, it's gonna be so far as across town, or across town. So it's in another village. Oh man, I've been away too long. But yeah, so just taking away all the barriers you can. But I think another like issue too that I was worried about is like, what if this person knows the person I'm talking about? Because like when that happens, even in just in healthcare, because like I was going to Express Care or something, or like that diagnostics lab. Um,
Mhm.
and like the lady taking my blood like knew who I was from like my work, and I was like, shit, like what if I was getting like an STD test and like she found out, and like she told her friend, and like now everybody knows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like people do talk.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of scary going to a therapist and be like, what if she's related to the person I'm talking shit about? Or like, yeah, it's rough. And then like finding out afterwards that my therapist does know some people that I know, and I was like, oh God. But like I think that's another part about like therapy is like it's kind of just like a relationship you develop with any other person. Like you'll probably not talk about the deepest things at first, so just kind of like ease your way in and like talk about more surface level things or whatever you can until you kind of warm up to them, and then you feel like you can trust them. So like I think it's totally okay to like go to multiple sessions and not like bare your soul yet. Like that's how it was with me and her. Like we was basically were like she was getting to know me, and I was like seeing like testing the waters and like seeing what I felt safe saying in front of her. And then like the more she was able to help me work through things, even just like smaller things, and like talk through different issues, and like I trusted her opinion, then I was able to like open up about like deeper things. So like I think that's another thing with therapy is it's kind of like a long-term thing. Like you're not going to go in there in a few sessions and be like, okay, doc, take care of this. Like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. It's just kind of like, you're actually solving it for yourself, and you're like, you're figuring things out for yourself. You just have like somebody to make you feel safe and like guide you through it. So yeah, I feel like but another thing too is that like not every therapist is great. Like I was super lucky. Like I got along really well with mine, but yeah, I've had other therapists that are just kind of okay, but I've heard like really bad stories from other people who like whose therapists like were really judgmental. So like I think that's another thing too that friends reminded me, like even if you do like, you know, you take the step, you go find a therapist, but just kind of like keep in mind that like even if this works out, that's not the end, and like there's still other options. Like just because like this one person doesn't vibe with you, or just because like they might not understand you, or like it might not be easy to talk to them, there you can totally see another therapist, just like seeing another doctor for like another opinion. It kind of takes time to like figure out if you can feel safe opening up with this person. Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to find the right fit. I've definitely been there before.
Yeah,
Sure.
same. I've been through a couple at this point in my life. It's not always easy. And in general, it's not that easy on Guam either. Like, some therapists will be like, they'll be booked up, right? Like, you can't see them for like 2 months just for the first appointment. And then, like, by then, you're just like, you might lose motivation to even like see them again, right?
And it's kind of scary too if you're like at a really low point and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to that appointment, or like, you know? So that's another reality. Yeah.
Did you have any like specific like difficulties like trying to find somebody or like trying to get care here? Here being Guam, I'm the only one here, by the way.
I didn't have difficulties finding a therapist and like talking to one because I had insurance through work, so I just looked in the directory and I was able to find someone who was covered by us, and I was really lucky too. Like I feel like therapy was really affordable. Like with copay, it was only like $60 a session compared to, I mean, I just hear it's really expensive in other places, so I feel like that's pretty affordable, all things considered. But shoot, I like lost my train of thought.
No worries.
But finding. So it was okay finding a therapist, but then like medication is where I really struggled on Guam. Like, so I had different diagnoses from. I had a therapist to talk to, and then I had a doctor who she worked in partnership with. Like they would communicate and stuff, and like co-diagnose me, I guess, or she would diagnose me based on like the therapist's. I'm thinking like how much I'm going to share about this, but I was diagnosed with ADHD by this doctor, and I'm just really thinking about how much like I'm going to share. I'll be open about it because like this is what I dealt with. She diagnosed me with ADHD, and it was kind of scary because I was like, whoa, like I didn't think I had ADHD. Like that didn't seem like me, like of what I had in my head of what ADHD was. But the more she talked to me about it, she said that like it's often misdiagnosed in girls because like the symptoms show up differently. Like instead of being like running around and stuff and like hyperactive, you could be more like inattentive, and that was something that I did a lot growing up, like very daydreamy, like have other things on my mind and like, you know, be distracted with things like, or like I'd like to read in the middle of things. Like I'd just be doing my own thing like while I'm at school. Because like my attention just wasn't, not all the time, but you know, this would sometimes happen. But anyway, so after that, the medication for that that she prescribed me is Adderall. So you know, it's kind of scary because like I'd never, you know, I know a lot of people just use that recreationally, but I'm not like that. Like I wasn't just like the kind to be like, oh, I'm gonna take Adderall for a test, like, or to study or whatever. Like I take you know, using prescription drugs very seriously. And I was worried that, you know, I didn't know how it was going to affect me. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was also, before that, I had also like been diagnosed with like severe depression, and I had taken antidepressants for that. And that was also really scary. Like every time I would have to like decide whether or not I'm going to take this medication, it's kind of like, what is this going to, who am I going to be? Like, what is this going to affect my brain? Like, am I going to be able to work? Like, am I going to be able to be a parent someday? Like, these are all just like the scary thoughts that came up for me every time, or that still come up for me. Cause like, you really just don't know what it's going to do. So it's kind of like a leap of faith, but I think I had decided like, things are so bad that I can't not try it. Yeah. So I was just willing to do it. And it's like hard because okay, I'll just keep going in this story. So I started, you know, taking the Adderalls prescribed on and it really did help me focus and like, you know, have more because I felt like my brain was always scattered. But so after a while, I only took it for like a few months. There was one point when like I tried to go to the pharmacy and then they didn't have it. And there was just a lot of runaround. Like they would say like, oh, go check it at Payless at I forgot what the pharmacy is called, but like in Oka. They'd be like, oh no, we don't have it. Go check it there. So then I have to go here and there and stuff. And be like, oh, we don't have a shipment of that until like next month. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just screwed for like another month. And sometimes since like Adderall is like a schedule whatever drug, like you have to have some kind of like approval from your insurance in order to get it, because like people just abused it so much that you know, there's restrictions on it. So I would have to call my insurance, try to get a hold of somebody and be like, hey, I need this because my doctor prescribed it. I have the prescription. Can you approve it so I can have the medication I need to function? And like, it's just so much runaround like between them and like going to the doctor's office, physically going there, taking time off work to like try to get my prescription, like a paper so that I could get my medicine, going to the like pharmacy and like them treating me like I'm like just so condescending, you know, like just so judgmental. And who knows what they'll tell other people. And at this, like at that point, like while I was doing all this work, like, okay, I'm like really crying now, but I was doing like a really public job. And like every day I would have to record myself and like put my name on it. So needing medicine for like to live and like continue to do my job and like worry that like what people are thinking of me, it was really rough. And it honestly got to a point where like I didn't feel like I could do it anymore. Like you know, this is pretty heavy, but I'm okay. Like I can talk about it. It's just like it's rough to have like mental health issues and like have the judgment from so many people in the small community. Like even just like I was living with it sometimes and like I would be really embarrassed about or like really private about my medication because I've had family members tell me like don't take meds and stuff, or like you're gonna get addicted, or oh, watch out, just make sure you don't. Yeah, and just these kinds of comments from my own family, like it can make you feel really unsafe. And like to not feel understood. So I totally get it when people on Guam don't feel like they can reach out for help or don't feel like they can talk about what they struggle with, because it's hard when everybody, like in your reputation of your whole family and everything, like, and a lot of people want you to hide mental health issues. Yeah, because you know, if you want to be able to work or if you want to be able to have opportunities or whatever, you want people to like think that you're stable, right? So even just telling people that I had depression was like hard, but and like it's hard talking about this right now, but like if I could say this stuff and like it could help anybody, like it's worth it. Because like if somebody had told me all this stuff, then like maybe it wouldn't have been so scary seeing a therapist or like going through like taking meds and stuff. It's just hard because like nobody talks about it unless like you do. So when all this is going on, I was actually like talking about it online, like, or my Instagram story and stuff, and being like, I tried to get my medication and they wouldn't give it to me. Just like, I didn't say what it was for because I didn't feel comfortable sharing at the time, but like when I would say things like that, people would respond and be like, and like talk about their mental health stuff and like talk about it with me. So like that's why I feel okay sharing things, because like if I don't talk about it, then I just feel completely alone, and like other people are just waiting for you to like, or waiting for somebody else to like throw out the lifeline and talk about it. So yeah, it's okay. This is me being strong, even if I'm like crying the entire time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing and for being so vulnerable and willing to talk about it, because you're right, you know. Back home, it is hard to talk about these things because of, you know, the culture of shame. And thank you so much for being vulnerable. Yeah, sometimes it just takes one person's story, and that's kind of our whole hope with this podcast, you know, one episode, one story, to just, you know, show people that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't always have to be cherry all the time. So thank you.
Yeah, and I really love that, because like that resonates so much with me. Like I feel like that is like how I try to put myself in the digital sphere. Like it's okay that like things aren't going to be great, because like I got to a point before where I just like tried to make everything perfect for so long, and then I finally broke. So now it's like, you know, things will be fucked up sometimes. That's just how it be.
Yeah, you know, like CJ, you can add on to this if you wanted to share. I just kind of wanted to like tack on to like what you were saying about like what it's like to be here. You know, I mean, like, yeah, it can be hard to get help in general too, right? Because like the resources can be limited. Not everybody has insurance, and it can be expensive if you don't have insurance. Like when I was pregnant, I was like, by the way, if you're pregnant and you think that you're gonna get PPD, you could get depression while you're pregnant. Like they don't really talk about it, but I was super depressed while I was pregnant. And
Wow.
like at the time I didn't have insurance, and so that was like a real struggle for me, right? Just as an example, like how hard it can be, right? There aren't always a whole lot of options, and it can be expensive if you don't have insurance. So like I think that, you know, like it was very fortunate for you to be able to get the help that you could, because your work provided that. But also, right, you're right, it can be really hard just like as a community to find, like, to get support from that community. You know, I also had like the same you know, comments of judgment when I was on medication. You know, like I didn't talk about it with my extended family. Like I don't really talk to my extended family about my personal life. That's a whole other like family history trauma that I'm not going to talk about right now. But but like I did have, like, there was one person who like, I'm not going to say the relationship I had with that person because that would give away too much. But when I had been, at the time, I was trying to be like a lot more open about the things that I was experiencing, right, with my depression. And this was like years ago in like 2016. And it was the first time that I had ever been on medication. And it was the first time I'd been open about it because like I said before, I was like terrified. And so I was on antidepressants for a while. And I remember specifically that person being like, you should get off that. You don't need it. You know, you shouldn't be on that. Like, are you still taking it? Are you sure you should still be taking it? And like, this is somebody I saw almost every day. you know?
God.
Like,
it's already hard enough for you to do it.
Right. You know, and so like it's just a shame that like that's kind of like the way, you know, that's like basically all of your fears manifested, right? When you do live on a small island that likes to talk all of the time. We're a very oral community. You feel so much shame already, like trying to seek help, you know, just internally. So like when you have somebody basically validate those fears, it's a terrible, terrible feeling.
Yes.
So I'm really sorry that you had to experience that yourself.
Yeah. I think like all that was, you know, all that is like why I talk about mental health, but like I'm not going to reveal too much about this either, but like somebody really close to me was tried to commit suicide. And it was terrible. I just didn't know what to do. Like, what could I do? Or like, how could I possibly help this person? And like, it just really made me start thinking more about like, what can I do for mental health? Or like, what is my role? Or like, what could I as a person possibly do? Because like, I can't change this person's how they feel about themselves. I can't like get rid of their pain. Yeah, I can't save them or anything. But like, I guess what I can do is just like talk about it and just like share that I am going through it, because like this person was able to come to me because I would tell them about my mental health struggles. So it's just like, if I could just talk to or if anybody was going through this, and just needed one person to say like that I go through it too, like that's all I could do, I think. So yeah.
And I think thank you again for sharing that. And it's like, we're human, you know, and humans, we thrive on connection. And sometimes like you said, it takes that one person, that one connection to know that you're not alone. And so, yeah, that is why we advocate so much for people who, when they're ready, you know, share your story and share your experience, because there's no shame in taking, you know, medication for mental health. There's no shame in being diagnosed, you know, with anything mental health related. Like I like to use the term now, neurodivergent, instead of, you know.
Yes,
so,
I love that. I agree. Like, yeah.
Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with it, you know. And so thank you again for just being so willing to talk about all of these things here and on your platforms on YouTube and through your blog. It's really inspiring and amazing.
I feel like I wouldn't be able to talk about this so openly if I didn't have spaces where like I felt like comfortable and like I would be understood and heard. So thank you too for providing this space. Like it's so valuable. So I started seeing it like not seeing, but like during the pandemic, I needed to talk to a therapist. So again, I the job that I work at full time like provided I had healthcare that I paid for and everything, but it also came with like over the phone therapy. Like I hadn't gotten billed for it, so I think it was like a free service, like during the pandemic at least. I don't really know, but so I would just talk to a therapist on the phone for a few months, like since maybe September or something last year, or August. But here and there, because like they were super booked up too. That's something I'm learning now too, just like it's actually been more difficult for me in some ways to receive the like care I need when I've been out in the States. So I guess that's another topic, but I had been talking to a therapist pretty regularly, like every 2 weeks, before every week, since, well, this current therapist, maybe since like January or something, or maybe like December. I can't really remember now, pandemic time. But when I first started talking to her, it was a really bad time for me. Like, this was like a few months ago. I was like having like anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and like, just like with different things going on inside, and like like moving in, and also the pandemic, and just like moving into a new phase of life, like as I'm getting a little older. And I really felt unstable for a while. Also just like working from home for like a year and not like being able to see like my family as much as I needed to. And like not being able to like be around people much. So yeah, I was going through a really rough time before, but like, talking to that therapist, like just having somebody that I know I'm going to check in with her. Like, just having that at the back of my head that like somebody, is like out there, like who is, wants the best for me. And like, I'm going to have to tell her that I fucked up. So like, I'll make sure to do the right thing. Yeah. So just like having somebody, like knowing somebody like who's outside of my family and like outside of anybody who like, who has like emotional ties to me, just like this objective person. I have this person in my corner and like to talk to every 2 weeks. Just knowing that I had that, really got me through some hard times. And like, I'm really proud that, this is like about 2 weeks ago. I had my last session with her since like I switched jobs. So now I don't have insurance, currently. We were talking and like trying to figure out like if we were going to talk again later, like when if we would ever talk again. And she said that like since we started together, I seemed like I was a lot more able to guide myself, instead of just feeling very like lost and unsure of myself, and just like approaching different things that I had painful emotional triggers with more agency. So and I actually felt like I was at a point where I didn't need to talk to her every week, and like I didn't need this person. Like I think I could solve my stuff on my own for now, and like I actually feel equipped with the tools that I need to deal with painful things as they pop up, or like to deal with whatever comes up. And before therapy, that didn't exist in me. And like, even if I had to work with different therapists, even if it was like shit at times, even if like I regressed a lot in some ways, or like it wasn't always like, yeah, like I'm doing great, I don't need therapy anymore. It's never like that. Like I went through so many ups and downs, and like, by the end of it, like I truly think that it was worth it. Like the past 4 years, like in and out of therapy and like medication when I need it, like it's been worth it. And like right now, I think this is the best mental health I've ever had. I don't know if that if that sounds shitty, because like I'm still like crying and stuff, but like I honestly feel happier and like more equipped to like deal with life and like take care of myself and like show up as my best self for like the people in my life. So thanks, therapy.
That is awesome. Congratulations on your journey. And I just want to add that crying does not mean you're in a bad mental state at all. So I
agree.
Yeah, that is super awesome to hear.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
So oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is there anything else that you wanted to share before we start to wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I would just tell like anybody, if I could tell my past self or anybody like younger, or like anyone who hasn't like gone through therapy, like it's gonna be hard at times, but I would honestly say it's worth it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. If there's nothing else that anybody has to share, we can start wrapping this baby up. Everybody good? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again, Chloe, for being here, with being so open to sharing your story. We really appreciate your time and your vulnerability, and we acknowledge the strength in that vulnerability, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of yourself to share this much, and we really, really appreciate that, and we want you to know that we appreciate that. So thank you, Chloe. Thanks everybody who is tuning in, who's listening, who's watching. So we'll see you. You'll hear us next time.
We wanted to end today with a reminder about safe messaging. In this episode, we did use the phrase commit suicide, but it is something we tried to avoid in efforts to continue to destigmatize mental health. In the spirit of safe messaging, the safer way to say that phrase would have been to say die by suicide or try to suicide oneself. We all are still learning the ways that we can use our language to destigmatize mental health, so thank you for understanding. Special thanks to Andrew Speed for sound editing, mixing, and creating our intro music. New episodes of Everything's Cherry will be available the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. Be sure to tune in and listen or find our visual podcast available on YouTube. Don't forget to find and follow us on Instagram at Everything's Cherry Guam. We'll see you next time. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, send us a DM or email us at cherrygupodcast@gmail.com. Our aim with this podcast is to have important conversations about mental health, but we understand that the feelings brought upon this exploration may sometimes linger. If you are looking for support and healing surrounding your experiences, the following resources are available and accessible for you. The Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center 24-hour crisis helpline can be found at 671-647-8833, and the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255.